So, students, let us once again understand what is rural marketing, its evolution, and the marketing mix strategies in detail. So, we'll start with very first definition. Perhaps the meaning will be clear from this definition. Rural marketing is similar to simply marketing. Rural marketing differs only in terms of buyer. Here, target market consists of customers living in rural areas. Thus, rural marketing is the application of marketing fundamentals, that is, concepts, principles, processes, theories, etc., to rural markets. So, when we try to analyze the marketing definition, marketing involves all the activities which make you reach the potential buyer and then convert him or her into the real customer. So, rural marketing, the very definition draws our attention towards the target audience, that is the terms of that is the buyers. So, in this target market consists of customers who are living in rural areas. But in further slides, we will also note the discuss and notify the differences, different types of market which are coming in the parameters of rural marketing, which connects urban areas with the rural areas. Perhaps the connection will be in the form of urban seller to rural buyer to rural seller to urban buyer in such a context. So, simply to understand whatever strategies or whatever application of activities which makes you to reach the potential customer, and thus you apply your process and theories to rural market. That is the simple definition of rural marketing, perhaps, which is given. So, we will also discuss the evolution of rural marketing. Now, these are the few phases, four phases which we have discussed so far. Now, phase one, which is before 1960, phase two, which is between 1960 to 1990, phase three, after mid 90s, that is after advent and application of LPG, perhaps, phase 4, that is in this new millennium, that is after 2000. So when we try to gather the evidences of certain features and peculiarities of rural market which falls into these different years or the span of years, what we will observe that these are all together divided into four phases, because each phase specialize in certain activities and features which were prevalent in those times, relating to certain incidences or relating to certain events. So let us see one by one what these phases are all about and how to differentiate all these phases in terms of gathering marketing momentum, that is the increased marketing activities and parameters to new areas. So let us understand. So rural marketing was similar to, or you can say same thing like agricultural marketing, that is in the phase 1 before 1960. Why it was similar? Because all about rural marketing was only and only concerned with buying and selling of agricultural inputs, produces, and allied products. Even if we talk about small scale artisans who used to prepare or produce earthen and metallic utensils and crafts, these were also coming under the parameters or paradigm of rural marketing under this phase, that is before 1960. So Asian Paints was the first company to introduce themselves and enter into rural market in 1949. So what we have observed that rural marketing was as good as only agricultural marketing, product exchange, A few artisans used to sell earthen and metallic utensils and crafts. And slowly and gradually, what was observed that this status quo began to change after, we can say, companies started entering into rural markets. Then we have phase two, that is between 1960 to 1990. What we have seen, this phase could be considered as the milestone for rural market, at least before LPG. Because what happened that Hindustan Unilever, they entered rural markets with their products like Lifebuoy soap was the first to get introduced, and followed by Colgate, Dabur, Nirma, Marico. So what we have seen that HLL, they introduced their product Lifebuoy soap in rural areas. Although HUL, if you see today now, the nomenclature is changed. It is HUL, but before, between 1960 and 90, it was HLL was the very famous abbreviation, and this was the company which used to produce toiletries and toilet soaps, and they had little Lifebuoy Lux. Although these soap, it belongs to soap industry, but market segmentation was done in such a way that Lux was considered as the soap for film celebrities and beauty soap. Liril was having certain texture and flavor of lime in it, and then they had Lifebuoy, which was equivalent to Dettol kind of products, wherein they were positioning Lifebuoy as the anti-germs soap. So, on health grounds, they introduced Lifebuoy soap in rural areas. But after that, what was seen, that rest is the history, that Colgate, Dabur, companies like Colgate, Dabur, Nirma, Marico, they also entered the rural market between 60 and 90. We also saw that Green Revolution took its turn and gain momentum in the years 1967 to 1977, approximately from 1967 to 68 to 77 to 78. White revolution, that is relating to milk and all milk products, it took place in 1970, which brought rural prosperity and changed demand cycles. So what happens after green revolution and white revolution? There was increase in purchasing power. There was increase in farmers' income, although subject to certain conditions, and which actually changed this whole dynamics of market. And also we have seen that Khadi and Village Industries Commission, Bunker Association, Handicrafts Emporia took over marketing of rural products. So these are certain kind of, you can say, autonomous bodies or bodies working under government, which finally took the large share of marketing of rural products. So we had Khadi Village Industries Commission, we had Bunker Association, Handicraft Emporia. So we can see, all in all, if we see phase two, as I rightly said, that it is the milestonic achievement or the milestonic phenomena for any kind of rural market, where we have seen that corporates entering into rural market. Revolution, the kind of revolution was green revolution and white revolution, which gained the momentum, and marketing increased by leaps and bounds. Also, certain bodies, regulatory bodies, and the association which were working in close knit with government, like Khadi and Village Industry Commission, Bunker Association, Handicraft Emporia, they also took marketing of rural products. After phase two, where we have seen that rural marketing increased in terms of size and nature, we immediately were driven, or we can say we have seen the application of LPG in the market after mid 90s. So this was the phase 3, in which we can say that new service sector although emerged in India, and pro rural initiatives by government also increased, because as we all know that service sector is something related to logistics, transportation, banking, healthcare facilities, infrastructural development, warehousing, marketing, service, all these things largely fall in the category of service sector, which needed actually rural initiatives also, rural area connection also. So government started increasing the rural initiatives, and India's agricultural sector gained strength, leading to transition from agriculture to industry. So this era, particularly this phase three, what we have seen that attempt was made to transit from agricultural prone economy to industry born economy or industry led economy. So government started increasing its more diverted its attention in terms of time, money, and energy towards developing India as industrial country altogether. So what happens that companies wanted to have a tie up with rural areas also in terms of we have seen corporate farming, also we have seen contract farming taking place. And what happened that company wanted association of farmers to work with them, and they started using rural areas as the platform to expose their products. So what happened that in this phase 3, probably we can say that yes, there was a plight of small and marginal farmers because uh, they were left at the mercy of certain corporates in case of corporate farming or contract farming. And also what we have seen that government initiatives was more to propagate and develop certain rural areas and make them suburb or at least have the connectivity with the urban areas. So somewhere we can realize that phase 3 was turning the table around. It was a game changer altogether, wherein the rural areas were seen as, you can say, a logistics, you can say a platform for getting raw materials and inputs also, and also exposing or launching their products in a very large number even in rural markets also. Then we have phase 4, that is after 2000. Now particularly after 2000 we have seen second generation reforms in banking. What we saw that NABARD, RRBs, SHG, microfinance, all these words were used largely, not only words or nomenclatures were used, but even their role increased to uplift the rural economies. So what happened that rural consumer or rural citizen was getting attention for making him or her into the mainstream of the economy. So we largely heard about financial inclusion, where we tried to bring the rural masses also in the mainstream of the economy in terms of saving, investment, in terms of provision of financial services. Also, in the same phase, we have seen media explosion and satellite invasion taking place. So we have seen that mass media, how they have altogether changed the role and context of every marketing. Perhaps it has a larger impact on the marketing strategies. And also the satellite invasion, wherein we have seen that how this satellite communication and technology have connected all the parts of country and world. So companies started hiring rural staff to have better foothold in the rural areas. So this way, what we have seen that companies slowly and gradually they started employing people from rural areas also, and they, because they want to have the good connectivity in rural areas, they want to draw their demand from rural areas. Even we have seen that how this entire phase was considered as significant in terms of bringing rural areas near to urban areas. So, urban rural connect was established. No longer we were into that particular phase where we talked about or we viewed the rural area as a remotely isolated nook corners. So even we have seen government initiatives like food safety bill, Anganwadi midday meals, they also increase Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan. They also increased to increase the literacy rate as well as the standard of living. So little bit progress in terms of education, communication, technology, media exposure, and financial literacy and knowledge and inclusion were main elements, and which actually developed rural pockets also. So these are all the phases which are considered very important in the evolution of rural marketing. Today what rural market we have been evolved through these all phases, although, and this is the last phase after 2000 which we have considered very important from campaigns and program point of view. This definition, we have seen that this definition is somewhere relating to drawing the customers. Now, let us understand the nature and characteristics of rural market. When we try to see the nature and characteristics of rural market, what we will realize that agriculture is predominantly having a major space or place in rural areas. So, agriculture is the main source of income. We can also, it won't be wrong if we assume that 90% of population in majority of villages today also, they are breadwinners or deriving their livelihood from the agricultural sector. And because we know plight of farmers, agriculture, they depend on agriculture for their livelihood. So what happens? Agriculture is seasonal in nature. Its crop production is seasonal in nature. So the income is also seasonal in nature. So what we have seen that it is fluctuating. Also the income becomes seasonal because it depends upon the crop production. Also, if we talk about the, if we want to measure the unanimous size and nature of rural market, there is nothing called as unanimous, because although very large areas are occupied by rural areas, large portion of our country is occupied rural areas, what we have seen that rural marketing is also geographical scattered. Why it is geographically scattered? Because there are different mandi setups, different wholesalers, go downs, widely scattered over geographical area, depending upon their accessibility, depending upon their nature and size of product and services in which they are dealing. So they don't have any central place as such. Market is very large, but this large market is geographically dispersed and scattered over different places, we can say. Then it shows, this market, rural market shows linguistic, religious, cultural diversities and economic disparities. Now why we are considering this particular feature? Because we know if rural areas are found, 70 75% of our country we find rural areas, They are scattered also geographically. So there will be different ethnicity, different customs, culture, languages, religion going on in different pockets. And same is the case with the standard of living and purchasing power. So we find that there exists the diversities in terms of languages, caste, customs, religion. Also we find that इकोनॉमिक डिस्पैरिटीज आर ऑल्सो देयर. ऐसे केस में जब भी हम लोग रूरल मार्केट की बात करते हैं तो अलग अलग रूरल मार्केट में हमें ये देखने को मिलता है कि अलग अलग लैंग्वेजेस, अलग अलग रिलीजन, कस्टम, कल्चर डिफरेंसेस हैं. और लोगों का जो परचेसिंग पावर है, इनकम है, स्टैंडर्ड ऑफ लिविंग है, वो भी जैसा मार्केट चेंज होता है वैसा रिफ्लेक्ट करता है. बिकॉज कहीं कहीं पे हमने देखा है एग्रीकल्चरल सेक्टर अच्छे से चल रहा है, कहीं पे गवर्नमेंट के इनिशिएटिव्स और प्रोग्राम बहुत अच्छे से फ्लेयर करते हैं, फ्लरिश करते हैं. तो उनके जो प्रोग्राम्स हैं, मनरेगा, आईआरडीपी, उसके तहत काफ़ी सारी पक्की सड़कें बनाई जाती हैं. तो उन क्षेत्रों में हमने देखा है कि इन सब रीजंस या फैक्टर्स की वजह से हर एक रूरल मार्केट का अपना लैंग्वेज, इकोनॉमिक डिफरेंस है. Market is undeveloped as the people who constitute it lack adequate purchasing power. तो हमने ये देखा है खास करके कि क्योंकि मार्केट जो है वो पूरी तरह से डेवलप्ड नहीं है, इसके वजह से जो पीपल, जो लोग उसमें बायर एंड सेलर हैं, वो हमने देखा है उनके पास एडिक्वेट परचेजिंग पावर भी नहीं है. सो व्हाट हैपेंस दैट स्मॉल स्केल मार्केट्स, मंडीज, दीज आर स्पेसिफिकली वीकली बाजार्स, ये सब लगते हैं क्योंकि लोगों के पास उतना परचेजिंग पावर नहीं है. बड़े फार्मर्स या फिर लैंडलॉर्ड्स, इनके पास अच्छा परचेजिंग पावर है, लेकिन इनकी डिमांड को अगर कंपेयर किया जाए छोटे मोटे लोगों से, और छोटे मोटे लोगों की जो प्रपोर्शन है वो इस एरिया में ज़्यादा है, इसके लिए वी कैन से दे लैक एडिक्वेट परचेजिंग पावर. एंड इट इज लार्जली एग्रीकल्चरल ओरिएंटेड with a poor standard of living, low per capita income, सोशो कल्चरल बैकवर्डनेस. तो ये कुछ पेकुलरिटीज हैं, ये कुछ कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स हैं रूरल एरियाज के. पहला, ये एग्रीकल्चरल ओरिएंटेड है. दूसरा, स्टैंडर्ड ऑफ लिविंग पुअर है जनरल टर्म्स में अगर बात किया जाए. पर कैपिटा इनकम भी लो है, and they show the tendency of socio-cultural backwardness, which means that they are not advanced and not fussy or not that much fast in terms of having or purchasing, placing demand for variety of goods or variety of brands for that matter, because their income is also low, their exposure is limited, and even today also if we see, socially and culturally backwardness is being realized and being felt in some of these societies in rural areas. They believe in tradition, taboos, they are superstitious, so which makes harder for any seller to altogether innovate and introduce new kinds of products also. Because in majority cases what we have seen, that electricity coverage is also not there, they don't have access to technology. So what happens that many of the durables, gadgets can't be simply introduced in many rural markets. So this way we can say that agriculture being main source of income, income being seasonal in nature, which is fluctuating depending upon crop production. Rural market is geographically scattered, showing language, religion, cultural differences, and economic disparities are also there. People lack purchasing power, poor standard of living is there, per capita income is very low, socio cultural backwardness is experienced. Also, it exhibits sharper and varied regional preferences with distinct predilections, habit patterns, and behavioral characteristics. हमने ये देखा है कि प्रोडक्ट्स एंड सर्विसेज को भी लेके इनके मोर और लेस हैबिट पैटर्न्स, बाइंग बिहेवियर एक तरीके ही है और वो काफी सालों से वैसे ही दिखते आ रहे हैं. थोड़ा बहुत अगर उसमें चेंजेस हुआ है तो अलग बात है. तो जहाँ पे हम लोग प्री डायलेक्शन की बात करते हैं तो एक ऐसा प्रेफरेंस या स्पेशल लाइकिंग या बायसनेस इन फेवरिंग समथिंग. तो they follow such buying behaviors or buying patterns or their own preferences relating to certain product, which is very much essential now to break, because they need to have the exposure to variety of brands and products also, but they have their own taste and preferences, and more or less these taste and preferences, they are coming from their own culture, and we can say habits and region to which they are belonging. Also, when we talk about rural marketing process, it is both catalyst as well as outcome of general rural development process. Initiation and management of social and economic change in rural sector is the core of rural marketing process. It becomes in this process both benefactor and beneficiary. इसका सिंपल मतलब ये कि रूरल मार्केटिंग प्रोसेस जो है वो एक तरह से आउटकम भी है रूरल डेवलपमेंट का और कंट्रीब्यूटर भी है रूरल डेवलपमेंट. तो जितने भी सोशल एंड इकोनॉमिक चेंजेस आते हैं रूरल सेक्टर में, वो सब मेन एलिमेंट है रूरल मार्केटिंग प्रोसेस के. रूरल कंज्यूमर को जानना बहुत इम्पॉर्टेंट है, उसके सोसाइटी को सर्वे करना बहुत ज़्यादा इम्पॉर्टेंट है, उनके परचेसिंग पावर, लाइफ हैबिट्स, उनका प्रोपेंसिटी टू कंज्यूम, ये जानना भी बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट है, उसको चेंज करना भी बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट है. तो ऐसे केस में जब भी हम लोग देखते हैं कि प्री डायलेक्शंस मतलब एक तरह का ही बाइंग बिहेवियर, इन्हें अगर बताया जाए तो दे विल ओनली स्टिक टू द ब्रांड फैमिलियरिटी, बिकॉज उनकी भी गलती नहीं है, वहाँ पे वो प्रोडक्ट मिलता ही वही है. तो इफ यू टॉक अबाउट टूथपेस्ट, दे विल ओनली नो कोलगेट. इफ यू टॉक लोकल प्रोडक्ट्स के लिए भी वो लोग का ऐसा ही है, जो लोकल प्रोडक्ट मिलते हैं प्री डायलेक्शंस उसके तरफ ही है. मोर अगर लोगों से बात करो तो दे वोंट बाय एडिबल ऑयल पैक्ड प्रोडक्ट्स और टिन्ड फूड्स और कैंड फूड्स, तो दूर दूर की बात है वहाँ पे इंट्रोड्यूस करना. तो दे हैव देयर ओन presuppositions and assumptions relating to certain things. So this way we can say even regional preferences, even rural marketing process, rural marketing development को कैटर करता है और उसका ही रिजल्ट है. चेंजेस, सोशल एंड इकोनॉमिक चेंजेस को मैनेज करना और इनिशिएट करना बहुत ज़्यादा इम्पॉर्टेंट फैक्टर है. Then this is very important because this is taking our attention or drawing our attention towards structure of rural market altogether. So in order to understand what is rural market, first we should understand buyer seller matrix. So if we try to understand buyer seller matrix, what we will realize is that rural cell, एक side you have rural areas, rural seller, एक side you have rural buyer. Same is the case with right hand side you have urban seller and bottom में you have urban buyer. So if we talk about rural buyer, they are on the topmost side of left hand corner. So this matrix is made from the combination of seller and buyer also, and with the combination of rural and urban area also. So if we try to locate only rural market, intra-rural market, that will comprise of rural seller and rural buyer. So that will be on the left hand side topmost corner where we have rural seller and rural buyer. This market is intra rural. And what kind of products will be available here? Because it is intra rural, every product, farm related, non farm related, consumer products, FMCGs, everything will be supplied, bought and sold. So this way we have rural seller to rural buyer. Now if we try to see the right hand side, taking firstly rural seller and rural buyer, sorry, urban seller and rural buyer, we have topmost side of right hand side. That is the second type of market wherein we can see urban seller sells goods and which is bought by rural buyer. Products which are bought and sold belongs to the category of consumer goods. जैसे हमने देखा फेज 2 में हिंदुस्तान लीवर लिमिटेड, जब भी आज HUL है, उसने अपने प्रोडक्ट्स को सेल किया, या कुछ सर्विसेज ट्रांसपोर्ट या वेयर हाउसिंग की, अगर कोई अर्बन सेलर सेल करता है, या एग्रो इनपुट्स या फार्म इक्विपमेंट्स, तो बड़े ट्रैक्टर्स और फर्टिलाइजर्स अगर अर्बन एरिया से फ्लो होते हैं रूरल बायर तक, तो वो भी रूरल मार्केट के कंटेक्स्ट में आएगा, क्योंकि वो क्या कहता है खास करके अर्बन सेलर टू रूरल बायर. So we have this second category of rural market. Then let us concentrate on the bottom side of this matrix. Now in the bottom side, what we have type 3, category 3 of rural market, in which we have seen that rural seller sells wood to urban buyer. So rural seller to urban buyer, what they will be selling? Of course, rural area specializes in farm related items. So agricultural produce, even we can talk about non-farm items also, some things which like handicrafts or special type of artisan product which are produced in rural area specifically, they are being sold to the urban markets. So the third category is having urban buyer on one hand but rural seller on other hand. So even that seller can be producer or trader. That way the type of product which they will be selling will be belonging to farming items and also non-farm items, as I rightly said. some kind of specialty, like even if we talk about some handicrafts or some sort of, you can say, earthen pots, and some sort of clothing material which is coming hailing from the rural side. These three will be considered as rural market. And last matrix purely belongs to urban area, because that is intra-urban. You have urban seller to urban buyer. So they themselves will be dealing with their kinds of products. All products are available in fact over there. So this urban seller and urban buyer won't come under the parameter of rural market. Otherwise, we have three different categories in which somewhere fully or partially we have rural people who are participating in this matrix, either in the form of seller or in the form of buyer or in the form of both, that is seller and buyer. So this way, rural market comprises of rural seller and rural buyer. Rural market comprise of urban seller selling product to the rural buyer. Rural market comprise of rural seller selling it to urban buyer. This way we can always talk about the different context and categories of rural markets. So we try to see the connection, or we try to see different topics and subtopics asked in the examination. They can ask about evolution of rural market, wherein the justification has to be made to all these four phases. We have spoken about all these four phases, how these phases have altogether changed the paradigm of rural marketing in terms of corporates coming in, agricultural produces which are getting circulated, distributed, green revolution, khadi and village industry commission, also government initiatives, LPG, financial inclusion, and certain kinds of acts and bills. So phase 1, which is before 1960, phase 2, which is between 1960 and 90, phase 3 after mid 90s, phase 4 after 2000. Then we have seen that rural marketing differs in terms of buyers, and with the last slide we have also seen three different categories of rural market targeting sellers and buyers from the defined areas. Characteristics of rural market: agriculture as the main source of income, seasonality of income and crop production, geographically scattered large areas, language, religion, culture, economic differences, lack of purchasing power in majority of small villages, more sort of agricultural orientation with poor standard of living, low per capita income, and socio-cultural backwardness. They have their own uniform habit patterns according to regional preferences and predilections. Buying behavior, buying patterns are same. Rural marketing process is very much essential for rural development. Lastly, structure of rural market. Three categories we have seen falling in the context of rural marketing: rural seller to rural buyer, urban seller to rural buyer, rural seller to urban buyer. So we try to relate same thing with theory notes. So if we try to analyze the theory notes, we have definition concept of rural marketing along with definition. We also seen under characteristics the scope of population and the other characteristics of rural market. Seen evolution of rural marketing, like we have considered all these background characteristics. Evolution, phase 1 or part 1, phase 2 or part 2, then we have phase 3 or part 3. Also we have discussed phase 4. Next lecture we will do in detail rural marketing mix also. Relating it with the rural marketing draws its main core element from the marketing definition. So marketing is the activity set of institutions, processes for creating, we can say, communicating, delivering, exchanging offerings that have value for customer, clients, partners, and society at large. सो मार्केटिंग वो सब एक्टिविटीज़ हैं, वो सब काम है, वो सब इंस्टीट्यूट्स हैं, एसोसिएशंस हैं और ऐसे प्रोसेसेस हैं जिसमें हम लोग वैल्यू क्रिएट करते हैं, वैल्यू को कम्युनिकेट करते हैं, डिलीवर करते हैं और एक्सचेंज करते हैं ऑफरिंग्स कस्टमर्स के लिए, क्लाइंट्स के लिए, पार्टनर्स के लिए एंड सोसाइटी एट लार्ज के लिए. ये डेफिनेशन अमेरिकन मार्केटिंग एसोसिएशन की तरफ से है. ये डेफिनेशन जनरल डेफिनेशन जो दिया हुआ है, मार्केटिंग इज द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन ऑफ द सेल ऑफ अ प्रोडक्ट. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, deciding on its pricing, deciding upon the place, that is areas it should be supplied, and how it should be promoted, that is advertised. So एक तरह से ये डेफिनेशन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन फॉर सेल ऑफ प्रोडक्ट से स्टार्ट हो रहा है. तो प्रोडक्ट, प्राइस, प्लेस, प्रमोशन के बारे में बात करता है और ये कस्टमर्स तक वैल्यू डिलीवर करने की बात करता है. उसी सिलसिले में रूरल मार्केटिंग का भी हमने देखा कि रूरल मार्केटिंग सिमिलर टू सिंपली मार्केटिंग ही है, लेकिन रूरल मार्केटिंग डिफर्स इन टर्म्स ऑफ बायर्स. और सेलर्स फॉर दैट मैटर. सो ऐसे केस में these marketing mix, which are the essential part of this definition, रूरल मार्केटिंग मिक्स के तौर पे या रूरल मार्केटिंग स्ट्रैटेजीज के तौर पे वी आर गोइंग टू डिस्कस इन द अपकमिंग लेक्चर.